Welcome back. You're watching Inside Politics, 10 minutes past the top of the hour. Thank you so much for staying with us. We continue dissecting the latest developments from the political developments in the country. And remember, we equally value your feedback back at home. Our numbers will be displayed on the screens in just but a few, so feel free to call in and make sure we hear you back at home in terms of your take on what we've discussed here, from the U-turn by members of parliament on taxes to the issues around Team Ground and what they intend to do, and equally what we're about to discuss right now, all to do with the infightings within Western Kenya, specifically Trans Nzoia County, where it's all to do with Wetangula versus Natembeya. And this has played out in the last couple of weeks, and it might have far-reaching ramifications for Western politics as we may know it. Let's listen in to some of the statements that have been exchanged between members of Ford Kenya, the Trans Nzoia Governor George Natembeya, and the Ford Kenya party the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula. Listen in.
Ati wako na papa ya Roma huko. Watu wanafanya watu wa Luya tunakuwa watu wa brand of jokes everywhere. Sasa ati mimi nikisema papa ya Roma ameingiza watu yetu kwa mtambo, kwa umaskini, iko watu wanakuja waniambia kwamba nisiongee. Kweli hawa jamaa kama wangekuwa kina Muliro wakati huo, sisi tungepata independence kweli?
Mambo ya kutukana party leader, mambo ya kutukana chama cha Ford Kenya ikome kuanzia leo. Ikome kuanzia leo. Kama ujue utapata cha mtema kuni.
Huo mchezo ambayo umeanza kuwa Trans Nzoia, uwe kiongozi aina gani, cha cheo gani, hatutakubali uhatarishe maisha ya wananchi.
Hatuwezi kuwa tunashughulika national na nyumbani inakaa vile inakaa vibaya. Na mambo ya amani katika Trans Nzoia County, it will be a subject of discussion in the next cabinet.
Kenya ni nchi ya amani. For us to grow, tunahitaji amani na heshima kati ya wananchi.
Okay, so the infightings within Western Kenya, some say it's proxy wars, some say it's direct conflict between these two leaders, all to do with influence within Western politics. So I'll start with you, Dismas, and perhaps paint a picture of how Trans Nzoia is instrumental in Western politics. And equally, what do you make of these altercations between the governor and the speaker? Will the oldest political party from that region survive this onslaught?
Well, you know, it's an issue of, well, we are not supposed to be tribalist, but it's about the Bukusu leadership. And there's a lot of disinformation and misinformation here. And it's nothing unique to Kenya. If you go to the US today, Trump is having conversations loaded with disinformation and misinformation the way Natembeya is doing. And even this information and disinformation is actually perpetuated by even states, because even a country like Russia is accused of doing a lot of disinformation, both in Kenya and abroad. In fact, if you go to the Russians' social media accounts, they're telling people to join them in numbers because they know that they can use that Twitter to pass out information to several people. Even Russia has been accused of influencing conversations at the US Congress over the Ukraine bill. But when you come to Governor Natembeya, he's asking very important fundamental questions that are the lawyers in top leadership. What have they done in the community? But he's directing those questions to the wrong person. He's asking Moses Wetangula instead of asking Eugene Wamalwa. You remember Eugene Wamalwa is the DAP party leader. He was a cabinet minister for defense, for devolution and water. So when Natembeya complains about poor water infrastructure in Western Kenya, shouldn't he be asking his party leader? When he complains about devolution, shouldn't he be asking his party leader? When he talks about military recruitment and they don't have enough lawyers going to KDF or NYS, shouldn't he be asking Eugene, who was CS for defense? In my view, he's using Wetangula as a decoy. the main target is actually a gentleman called Eugene Wamalwa. So if I were Eugene Wamalwa, I would be very nervous, I would be very worried. And in my view, in having this conversation, the person really Natembeya is supposed to be engaging with is Didmas Baraza, because I think they are playing in the same league. Didmas Baraza wants to be the governor for Bungoma, is also the governor for Trans Nzoia. They're in the same WhatsApp group. They should be engaging in those conversations. But from a national level, it's hardly 2 years from the time Natembeya was elected into office. So I doubt the people of Trans Nzoia elected him to go on addressing FINROS and disrupting FINROS. He gave a mandate, or rather he was given a mandate to deliver on some basics. So one wonders, why is he engaging in very early or premature campaigns? And he wants to maintain this for the next 5 years. But he's doing this at FINROS, not at boardrooms, and the people are not seeing tangible maendeleo. So the people who elected him into office are beginning to ask themselves questions. Did you elect you to go to FINROS and have altercations with Wetangula, or build the nation? In my view, I think that is the core of the matter, because we have, the other day, Musalia Mudavadi addressed people in Western Kenya, and he reminded them that you have another 3 Christmases and another 3 Ramadans before the general election. So are you going to focus every day going to FINROS, or you are going to do maendeleo? And this thing of Natembeya here is not limited to Trans Nzoia. It's in up to 90% of the counties, because governors, especially first-term governors, they've started looking at their re-election in 2027 instead of delivering on their mandates. And when they're unable to deliver on their mandates, they always blame the National Treasury for failure to give them resources in good time. And then, because this is a space that Kevin knows very well, when you look at the internal resources generated within the counties, on-source revenue. Yeah, on-source revenue. Most of them are going down the drain. Some of even the governors are accused of pinching those resources. So at some stage you begin to wonder, did you actually make a mistake in coming up with the devolution and having all these governors, if you are elected a governor today, and then you start thinking about the next election, and you're not delivering on your mandate? So I know it may sound politically incorrect, but maybe next time we have a referendum, we need to ask ourselves the role of governance and devolution in Kenya.
Will Ford Kenya survive this onslaught? Briefly.
Of course, Ford Kenya is going to survive. You know, Moses Wetangula is underrated. I have also the challenge with him is, as a Speaker of the National Assembly, you should avoid getting entangled in village politics. Because he's, according to the Constitution, he's number 3. So what business do you have going for FINROS and in altercations with Natembeya? It actually dilutes his brand.
Well, he has business, because some might argue he's, one of the figures when it comes to Western politics, kingmanship. So he definitely has to maintain his presence qua ground, as we mention it briefly. From where you sit, what does this mean for Western politics and the elusive Luhya unity, as it's commonly referred to?
One, I think, there's nothing new or refreshing coming from Governor Natembeya. It's self-preservation, self-interest, and just antagonistic politics that probably is serving the interest of other powers and not necessarily the people of Trans Nzoia. And I'm a lot more interested in Trans Nzoia because it is my second home. That is, the second county that my kids call their county. And if you go to Trans Nzoia, I think the people of Trans Nzoia would tell you that they are not interested in the wars between the political leaders. It doesn't serve their interest. It doesn't put more food on their tables. And it is incumbent upon the governor, just like the person the governor is attacking, to realize that they should all act in the interest of the people of Western Kenya and Luhya unity. If you listen, every time you listen to Governor Natembeya, he seems to be speaking from an angry position. He's angered by almost everything that everyone around him is doing. And I think it is not the right vibe to send to the people, If a governor stands and talks about the development records that they have in their country, it puts him in a better poised position to be a kingpin than to attack other kingpins. But I think, having said that, if you situate this drama, broadly, you realize that it has nothing to do with Luhyas. It has nothing to do with the kingship in the Luhya nation. It's all about the race to 2027. one of the presumed kingpins in Western Kenya, in Musalia Mudavadi, pronounced himself about the next election and the subsequent one. And the picture he painted is that, Luyas should not delude themselves, that there is any one of them who is going to win, And you unpack that statement and you realize that now the race is who becomes William Ruto's running mate come 2022. And 2027. Yeah. And then there is also this conversation around, parties folding, the way parties that formed Jubilee folded to form one big party. And I think that is what the president would love, to have everyone in one house moving into 2027. And I mean, it is common knowledge that we have this regime courtesy of Ford Kenya. I may not have very beautiful things to say about Ford Kenya, but were it not for Moses Wetangula, I mean, this election wouldn't have been won by this regime in the manner in which they won the election. I mean, whether they won or not is a totally different debate. And you can actually see why someone is directing his anger and blazing guns towards Ford Kenya on issues that are neither here nor there. Ford Kenya might have an issue because they have a party leader who is also the Speaker of the National Assembly, who is dragged, into local politics. And it demeans even the office of the Speaker of the National Assembly. But that in itself does not mean that anyone who is attacking Moses Wetangula or anyone who is thinking of becoming the next Luya kingpin is serving the interest of the Luyas. Natembeya is just an angry man who is speaking from a very angry position, and is very hateful in the way he's articulating things. And it is unfortunate that a nation that keeps talking about Luya unity keeps attacking, having their leaders attack each other. Okay. But let me say this. You see, the same way Governor Natembeya, and I think, he has pronounced himself enough times about the leadership in the Western region. The same way he's talking about, wiping out a generation of leaders is the same way I'm also thinking the younger generation of leaders, the Saboti Member of Parliament, Caleb Amisi, Edwin Sifuna, who has risen to the national level, need to start speaking consciousness. Rather than champion the Luya unity, they need to start speaking what is it that affects the Luya nation in terms of challenges, and what opportunities do they have, and how can leadership address these challenges and tap on the opportunities. They can actually wipe the entire crop of leadership, including the guys who are behind Natembeya's, attacks on Wetangula, and wipe everyone. So much so that when we are talking about Baba going to the African Union Commission, and people are thinking they can tap into Baba's political capital, they also get wiped out completely, including people who are thinking that by supporting Baba, they'll have an easy way. A new generation of leadership can actually emerge from this drama that we are seeing and wipe everyone. And I think Baba would sit down smiling when the likes of Sifuna wipe the current generation of people who keep preaching tribal unity, tribal kingpinship out of this. And if they go with William, it would be good.
Interesting. So, Osido, at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, as much as we call out political intolerance and it has no space within Kenyan politics, who benefits from these altercations? That's the big question. Is it Papa Waroma? Is it Governor Natembeya? Or is it a proxy war that these two leaders are being drawn into? What's your view?
Jesse, I am just coming from Trans Nzoia after having been there since Thursday.
Okay.
To lay my cousin's sister who passed on in Canada of cancer.
Condolences.
Despite all the efforts that government is putting in place to deal with cancer, we want to call on all agencies to put hands on deck to help Kenyans to really deal with the cancer. But while there, I spoke to a number of people, because 4 days is not small from a political mindset like mine. From taxi drivers to people in Mama Mbogas selling bogas to border borders, many people, including intellectuals. And this war is, from their perspective, is among three people, but largely two people, between Governor Natembeya and the Speaker of the National Assembly. And the person really fueling and driving the war is Governor Natembeya. And from what I was told, I don't know what the rest of us know, is purely about 2027. And interestingly, the speaker has a candidate that is being prepared, and this is a female candidate who happens to be a cabinet secretary in the current cabinet, who is being prepared to take over from the governor.
Okay, we're not sure about this.
We are not.
But
Yes. No, these are just. That's why I gave you the background of where this talk is coming from.
All right.
But my interest was in the performance, and interestingly, from the number of people that I spoke to, the governor has done quite well, as opposed to 2013 and 2017, which now apparently gives them much more power to follow the governor. So if the heir is going to a funeral, watu wengi sana wataenda huko. If the heir is going to some, he's been talking about birthdays. If he's going to a birthday, they'll really run there and, and try to listen to the governor. But the politics around this and the inside politics is you look at the performance of the major parties, particularly Ford Kenya and UDA and DAP. Against 2022, and Ford Kenya it's a fact that it didn't do very well, both at the MCA level, having garnered I think about 3 seats out of 25 MCAs. DAP got 7 seats, UDA got 12, ODM got 3. So that's
within Trans Nzoia.
Yes,
county.
that's Trans Nzoia County,
Okay.
25 MCAs. So if you look at again members of parliament, Ford Kenya only has one MP. That's I think is Mheshimiwa Ferdinand Wanyonyi, having been elected from that party. Now the degree of recruitment that is going on, and we know parties have now been recruiting ahead of elections, which is them who know when will happen. That is internal party elections. DAP, that is of course led by Mheshimiwa Eugene Wamalwa, and the governor is Mheshimiwa Natembeya, is doing much more better and is looking much more organized than Ford Kenya, that is apparently meant to be the party on the ground. So this is of course creating a lot of friction within Ford Kenya, and therefore hence these wars. And I don't think, in my view, that as Dismas rightfully said, the speaker is not supposed to be drawn into these issues. The citizens should be asking fundamental questions about development records, about the responses, indeed out of some of the concerns that Mheshimiwa Natembeya is also talking about. He is the governor. So issues around water, about food security and agriculture and all that. So I think that these are wars that will continue to go on, particularly around formations ahead of internal party elections, and indeed, therefore, the 2027 elections. Who wins, who loses? Of course, it's the common citizens who will largely lose out of the expectations that we have, that devolution is supposed to respond to certain major issues, which therefore calls for local organizing among citizens. What are the recall opportunities? Of course, this must spoke about Article 104 of the Constitution. We have made the recall clause look very difficult, because right now we really cannot ensure that we recall, given the parameters that have been set. But what are there for the other alternative mechanisms to even stop Governor Natembeya from some of these, very irresponsible, if I could say, narratives, and even calls for leaders to sit, dialogue, the place of dialogue, the place of mediation. Who are the local mediators? The, village council elders, the powerful women from Trans Nzoia, those powerful youth who are used to mobilize, the gangs and all that. Can they be able to call themselves to order and call those leaders and tell them, ladies and gentlemen, or lady and gentlemen, or gentlemen, when you're fighting, so it is us who are hurting. So there's a opportunity and room for a number of conversations that, in my view, should call for a call off of these wars and the alterations, but much more fundamentally looking at what are the expectations of the citizens around development, and just ensuring that peace, unity and love prevails.
Okay, interesting. I'm reading a comment on X right here, and it's an interesting one. It says, we did not have contribution of Natembeya people, only Wetangula. So I don't know if you're Natembeya or Wetangula people.
I think the person who has authored that comment needs to know that Emmanuel Toh indicated that the conversations we are having here we pay fidelity to the truth.
Simple.
So it's we are not looking at Wetangulas' truth or Natembea's truth. It's fidelity to the nation.
Simple. And speaking of toys, on the other side of the studios, I mean, the discussions are going on well, definitely highlighting some of the issues that played out in the course of the week, including, as you fondly put it, Baba in Addis Ababa. Anyway, what should we expect in the coming week?
Well, thank you very much, Jesse. And in that note, or in that breath, of course, we expect that there's so much that will be happening. We'll be pursuing the truth as the panel is trying to do. And Raila Odinga Baba to Addis Ababa is set to travel to some parts of Africa. He's scheduled to travel to Djibouti and Ethiopia in May, just a few weeks to go. And he will be looking south to Zimbabwe, Malawi, Angola, Zambia, and Botswana. And that is that's just part of the campaign that he's trying to ramp up ahead of that busy schedule. Remember, he's supposed to submit his official bid for AUC chairmanship this month, I think around 15th of this month. And so that will be forming part of the discussions this coming week. And so we wait to see whether he will also be going to Senegal. Remember, they have a new president, a very young president, the youngest president in Africa. And we wait to see whether he will be going there. He will also be traveling to South Africa to see, after the elections that will be held on 29th of May, where we expect that a new president will be there. And so that is part of the discussion that will be happening this week. Something else that will be taking center stage is the primaries. We expect that Raila Odinga, or the ODM party leader at this point, not the Azimio leader, will be leading a meeting that will be planning and executing ways to organize the party grassroots elections that are scheduled for April. Baba said that immediately after Ramadan, mambo inaanza. So we wait to see whether that will be taking a stage. And of course, we have seen those wrangles, the two leaders, the two deputy party leaders trying to angle and throwing their hats in the ring for that position of the party leader if Raila Odinga concedes and says that he will now be focusing on AUC. Something else that we also be looking at is the UDA primaries. Remember, these primaries were supposed to be held in December, I think December 9th, but that date was moved forward to April 19th, 21st. It was staggered in three ways, and we hope that they will be giving some communication. The SG of the ruling party, Cleopas Malala, will be giving the way forward to see whether that will be the way to go and when these elections will be happening. There were some murmurs between the Mount Kenya leadership saying that they were not happy with the creation of 3 deputy party leader positions, that they were saying it would neutralize the deputy party leader now, Rigathi Gachagua. And so I don't know whether the panel can weigh into this. Perhaps Dismas, what would you make of the elections that have been postponed for this while?
Come again, To. Let's just hear that question again.
Yeah. I was asking Dismas on what he thinks about the elections that have been postponed. This is the second time it was postponed for the UDA party. Okay, Dismas,
Is obviously Emmanuel, so is paying fidelity to the truth. But having party elections in Kenya is at all order. Okay. And if you're not very careful on how you handle your party elections, then the probability of disintegrating is extremely high. Okay. So in my view, we need to apply a lot of pressure on all political parties in Kenya to have free, fair, and credible political party elections so that it creates way for free, fair party primaries. Now, if we do those two things, then we'll be dancing to the bank.
All right.
But I know people, like especially Willa will confess, if ODM has party elections today, the party will disintegrate. So party leaders have to be very careful on how they babysit the entire process.
Okay, we remember the men in black and whatnot, so it's definitely a time to monitor, and only time will tell if the party primaries will go smoothly. All right, let's take a short break. As we come back, it's all about your call, so we'd like to hear from you. Feel free to call in our studios. The number is displayed on your screen, 0732 142 0732 142 590. Feel free to call in and give us your take in 2 minutes or so, just briefly, on the issues we've been able to canvass. Start with your name and the area you're calling from. You're watching Inside Politics. We'll be back with your call.